right, it's 11 o'clock, ding dong. Okay, people, so welcome to our March series. We are going to have a wonderful guest speaker here today, and he will give you a taste, not a taste, not quite direct experience, because we're going to do that in the future about entrepreneurship, right? So what's entrepreneurship, right? It's the top of your mind, maybe, but entrepreneurship is what? It's just the power, right? The magic of proving or not your own ideas, and creating something out of nothing in many cases, through creativity, to bootstrapping, right? It's not never entrepreneurs about impressing others, about impressing yourself about how much you are able to achieve. So here we have Charles Ebersole, right, the Blue Jay, like you. And Charles has had a tremendous business experience. One of his businesses we just discussed has been in business for more than 50 years this year, right? 74, that's it, with a national presence today. So his businesses not only have the roots in its own community, because one of many entrepreneurship, straightforward, it's exactly what Charles is doing. So with that in mind, one of the things you have to learn here at the college is to use the resources are presented to you. If an opportunity is presented to you, I don't know, something like an invitation or something, please catch on that, because you never know how that thing could change your learning, change your experience, and everything else. So therefore, I do encourage you to ask questions. So with Charles, I know him for 15 years now. So we ran together, and I hope that will come back, Charles. It was the campus-wide entrepreneurship scholarship. So that functioned as an pitch on the campus level, as a competition for the best ideas, and that was a very generous donation to the tuition money, right? To a scholarship, and then eventually for the students have an idea, like do something. Why don't you start early? By the end of your studies, you could have already up and running a business plan and feasibility plan that might prove very useful to you down the road. So, questions, prove how good you are to Charles, and have a wonderful interaction. Thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you, Petru. I appreciate your definition of entrepreneurship. When I was preparing I want to say the relative little bit of this, because this is so ingrained in my heart, it's easy to speak about. Entrepreneurship is really defined as owning a business or a business. It's so much more than that. And I'll get into that. A couple things that I want to make clear. I'm very aware that you've all come today with an expectation of what you might receive, and very much hope to meet that expectation. What I need is I need some acknowledgement here and there. I need some validation. I think this, or something like that. Certainly ask a question. Otherwise, I feel like I'm Charlie Brown's teacher. That's not something that I want to be today. Folks that say who Charlie Brown is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, just for some general background. I grew up in a little town called Souderton, Pennsylvania, in Montgomery County. I live near there with my family. I have a beautiful wife. Her name is Cynthia. She's an town grad. She's an occupational therapist. So an occupational therapist. Okay. Well, I have a recommendation for anybody who might be in search of a spouse that might do well to hang out with the team. They're wonderful folks, and their skill set and way of thinking and everything is nothing for both of them. I live with my wife. I have 2 grown children. A daughter who's 33. She's an attorney, and 16 months ago gave birth to beautiful twin little boys. She is doing well in her career. She's like a lot of young contemporary mothers. She's trying to be all things to all people, and I think she's very successful. I have a son who's 30 years old. He went to Montana State University. He thought he would never come back. When he did, he decided to go into business for himself. And I spend a lot of time helping him, and I really much enjoy it. I've made the comment that there are places where it took me 10 years to get to, and I think knowing that, knowing what I know and being where I've been, I can help him get to those same places and fun. But some of them not. Some of these things he has to live on his own and feel, taste, and smell, and touch to really, really gain the skill and the experience to capitalize on, react to, or plan on. So I very much enjoy that interaction. And I spent some time working with actually some of his friends that are new in business or newer in business, and they love to reflect back and forth. And I believe I have quite a bit to offer given my experience. As I stand here today, I don't say that I'm retired. I still own all of my companies, but I don't go to work. Very, very good people operating, and we'll discuss what that means to me in a little while. My daughter made it very clear to me, though, about a year ago, we spent some time together. She said, you know, retire is probably not the right word. You may have stopped doing what we're doing every day, but you're not finished being you. I appreciate that very much. So whatever is me, that's been successful and helpful is what I want to continue. I've been here before, and I've been invited back, and I guess that's an indication that I've been able to provide some value. We have an adopted son, Joe, who was a Liberian war refugee, and we took Joe in about 27 years ago. My son, Jake, who's 30, doesn't remember Joe not being in our life. Joe lives in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He's a math teacher, has two wonderful children, a lovely wife, and so between Joe's children, our new grandchildren, and really we're 6 adult children, grandchildren in our lives. We have a tremendous family life, and something I'm very proud to be able to devote far more time than I would have even 5 years ago. So I went to high school in Souderton, Pennsylvania. I want to make clear that all of my life, I always seemed to find a way to make some money doing things outside of the confines of an employment relationship. I was mowing lawns, shoveled snow to the extent that I actually invested in a snow. I moved enough lawns to actually invest money in a lawn. When I got to high school, I became a pretty good ticket scalper. We would have Ticketron online, and they'd wait in line and get tickets. And I made it a point to develop some working capital. Back then, when I was in high school, working capital was $1,200. Well, I could go and wait in line for concert tickets and get $1,200 for it. And as it got closer and they weren't available, I then sold them for a profit. I did something else. A lot of my friends, a lot of people who wanted those tickets couldn't afford them. So I financed them. So pay me over the next one. Nobody ever said it. I was able to make a little bit more money doing that. So that's something that I recommend. Consistent principal in my high school got wind of it, and he said, I really don't want you effectively loaning money to people. So I kind of said, during that time, I was always intrigued. I call myself a commerce junkie. And I really am. I go to a new town, or driving here today, or driving along, I'm seeing that company, that company. Mine's spinning, what do they do? Who do they employ? How big is their service area? Really, what's the business of that business that goes beyond what the sign said? And my wife's very much accustomed to it. I ride along a lot, and I just say, and she say, well, what's that about? And when I tell her, and it takes 5 minutes to tell her what that was about, she says, okay, sorry, I asked. So I'm a commerce junkie, always have been. March of my senior year in high school, I bought $1,500 a bunch of refrigerated cases that were placed in a farmer's market in Chester, Pennsylvania. A lot of people from my community would take their wares to different farmers markets in the Philadelphia area. The Chester market was something I had access to, and I became very quickly a decent butcher, and that was a real business. I had employees, I had payroll taxes, I had insurance, I had obligations. And after a year, I looked. I was making really good money, but I didn't like my life. I knew I could grow, and I knew I had to make a change. I was able to sell that business for, at the time, it was $35,000. That was a lot of money. I was able to do that, and I decided to come to Elizabethtown. Why Elizabethtown? Well, my sister was a student here. She's here. Everybody likes her for something. So kind of quite recent. My academic record in high school wasn't really outstanding by any measure. But later on about how lousy a student that I, what that really means. So I came here for an interview, and the nice lady's name was Connie Zerby. We sat down, and I came to that interview full of excitement with a check. The reality is I never filled out an application. I was accepted. And over the first semester, I was repeatedly called to the registrar's office, the housing office, whatever, to provide information they never had. But somehow, the housing got messed up, and I ended up sleeping in a study lounge in D3. I was very willing to do that. I was very happy to do that. It was a great experience. So over the course of a few years, I guess the college collected all the data they needed on me about me. At the time, our president here was named Mark Ebersole. And for all the years that I was here, there were quite a number of folks that believed that he was either my uncle or my father or my grandfather. I never confirmed or denied that. So in a lot of cases, it used to my advantage and probably been on acceptance process. I think if I would have gone through the rigor that you folks have gone through, I wouldn't have done it. I believe that. So, when I got into the business program here, there were kind of pigeonholes of who was involved. Student, there were the accountants. Big program. His name's named after Ed Bidding, who was the accounting professor. Wonderful man. Accounting majors were overwhelmingly set on getting a job with one of what was then the Big 8 accounting firms. And even to get an interview with the Big 8 accounting firm was a big deal for the accounting majors. Being an Elizabethtown accounting grad meant something. And they were recruited. And so that was kind of one segment of the population of the business department. When it came to the concentrations in the business department, we had management, we had operations, we had personnel, we had marketing. The curriculum was really based around being a good employee. You're being trained to be good employees. Except for me, because I didn't ever intend to be. And so that posed sort of a problem. There was a segment of the population, while the recruiters for good employees at the time were AMP, John business anymore, Hershey Foods, which certainly is, Armstrong World Industries, and Carlos Sutton. That's what Chapman recruited a lot of my friends. There was a segment of the population that had come from family businesses. And their intention was to go back to their family business. And it was a fairly large segment. Is there anybody in here who comes from a family business? I don't know what the objective is, but largely the objective then for those students was to go back to the family business. Then there was myself and 2 or 3 others that were called it as entrepreneurs. And it was rather awkward. There was a lot of things that we were being taught or things that we were engaged in that were applicable, but yet not necessarily consistent with how we learned. So through some struggle, I met a professor, Don Mustin, who not only became my mentor, my advisor, a lifelong, very best friend, who was passing years ago. And he pulled me aside and said, look, you have talent, you're a terrible student, but you're not dumb. I said, well, okay, what do you mean by terrible student? He said, do you want to study here? I said, you take a note. Do you even open that book? You ask great questions, you interact well, but your study skills are terrible. He said, I can help you in the courses I'm teaching, but you have to improve that and everything else that I'm not involved in. But guess what? I'm here for you. This is the challenge for me. I know what your objectives are. They're very clear as far as being an entrepreneur. And so he took me under his wing and helped me through a lot. He never cut me any slack on anything. There was one professor who cut me slack in a course called Quantitative Techniques. I don't know if we have that. Today we have people, analysts running around and talking about growth. Well, I understood what was going on. I knew how it might be useful. I could not study that or test the word right. So this fine gentleman was a part-time professor. Actually let me sit in his office after earning or failing the final in my senior year and explain my way through what the objective was with respect to what we were being taught. And I passed that with flying colors. And so I would say that was really the only special treatment I got, despite the fact that Don Mustin and a few others were willing to kind of step out of line, take on the extra work, come into their homes, things like that, that I never hear it happening really anywhere else. And so my Elizabethtown experience is very, very deeply ingrained in my soul. That's not too sad. You all know Marty. You don't know what Marty's in development. Marty, when I got to live in town 41 years ago, Marty, what's your title? Area coordinator, housing coordinator,
Director of Development.
director? No, you weren't director. Yeah, you were living in town.
Well, I took over when they got.
Okay. So Marty was involved in housing. And I met Marty very, very soon here. And Marty and I have interacted over the years on a number of things, not only here, but in his journey through his career and other places he's been. Me acting as a contractor, some of the facilities that he managed. I remember playing golf with Marty. I don't know if you remember this. What sticks in my mind is Marty likes to play golf with bare feet. And Marty doesn't buy golf tees or golf balls. He survives on what he finds in the woods and what broken tees are laying around the tee box. And also doesn't invest in golf shoes. I remember that very, very well. We played a lot of golf. And if you want to hear some of our golf antics, come to lunch and I can tell you some things that are really fun to talk about that might not necessarily be appropriate for the time I'm here. So I learned by doing. And on campus at that time, we had the activities planning. And we planned concerts. We promoted concerts, Marshall Puckett, James Taylor, the Hooters. And I was very actively involved in those things. We marketed those events. We negotiated those events. We staffed those events in real life, in real time. And that's when my learning came. It came from all the opportunities that were around me. So I'm not discounting classroom experience whatsoever. But what I really needed was that hands-on. That's where I came from. That's what I'm good at. And people ask me to describe myself. Sometimes I say down and dirt. Sometimes I say gritty. I like to be in it. I like to be right there. At one level. Street level, we'll say. So a lot of my learning, overwhelming amount of my learning was influenced by the opportunities that I was able to take part in and lead and be chosen to. And I like to think I earned those roles. So I learned by doing. So when I was here, I had come from being in business for myself, and I was using that in it. And I was spending money when I was here faster than I was earning it. That's never acceptable. And so I found and seized some opportunities to do painting and maintenance and cleaning and things, not only here close to campus, but in town. Drive down 283, there's a suburban propane terminal that has big tanks. I painted those tanks. And I could go on forever about how those things came about. Damage view apartments up here on the hill. The developer, who was a partner with several professors here, told me the RTR, ready to rent. They were under construction, and myself and my two helpers, we painted all the doors, and we cleaned up the apartments, finished them ready to rent, RT. And as I went on, and that came to a close, and went back home, graduated. That was kind of a, yeah, been there, done that. That's what I did, and here we are now. Well, my first job when I left here, when I graduated really in the winter of '85, but I walked in '86. I left graduation in '86 and went home Saturday, got home, I think 9 o'clock. 2 in the morning, I was up and getting into an Allied Airlines truck, which was the job I got when I left in December. And I'll say to this day, if I had not have done that, I wouldn't have been able to function in the business that I ultimately have run for. I learned to work with all sorts of people. I learned to work with celebrities and executives, entertainers. And I learned to work with enlisted military personnel from all over the world. I learned to work side by side with people who were doing the very best they could and all they could do, being a mover. And I have respect for everybody along that line. What are the things that happened? Well, my objective in doing that was, first of all, that was not going to be my career. I wanted to do that because I'd be on the road for 10 days and I'd have 3 days off. Hopefully it wasn't on a weekend. But during those 3 days, I was exploring businesses to buy, businesses to start, looking at other options, perhaps getting a job that was more consistent, I would say, with being a recent college grad. And I reached the conclusion that what I did when I was here at Easttown in the property maintenance field had a lot of things. I could do this, I could scale it, and I wanted to make that a business. So I began on that journey, but I want to stop for a second because during all this time, and still to this day, I need validation. Being an entrepreneur is not an exact science. My wife, the occupational therapist, she has letters. She has letters. OTR/L, occupational therapist registered / licensed. That has a value, a minimum of X. Okay? What do I have? I'm just Bachelor of Science degree. I have skills that are not documentable in the form that letters would give. Her whole family has letters. My parents have letters. Well, what am I? I'm an entrepreneur. Well, in the course of my allied career, the 8 months that I did, I had the opportunity to move Jack Welch. Anybody know who Jack Welch is? The guy at GE. Yes. Chairman, CEO of GE. And so I was chosen to lead a crew, one of many, in moving Jack Welch. And it's a very fine gentleman. And he took the opportunity to get to know each and every one of us who were working in his home and handling his thing. And to make a long story short, he came to me when I was actually in his very large wardrobe closet, putting his clothes in special boxes accompanied by his personal valet. And said, I will hire you tomorrow at GE. You want to do that? Contact this gentleman here, and I'll make it happen. However, you will not last. You're an entrepreneur. And in the progression that we have at GE and executive track and everything else, he said, it's not going to happen for you inside a big company like that as fast as you need it to. Knowing the little I know. He's exactly right. So I was validated, being an entrepreneur, I was validated that he saw value in what I might have to offer. I got validation from Don Musson. He said, you're an entrepreneur. That's important. Don't sell yourself short. Expand on it. Build on it. Do it. Go for it. I'm here for you. And he was. For 35 years. Oh. Sometimes the roles were reversed. I ended up counseling him. That was okay. So there's been a couple other times where I was major validation took place in my national company called PKI. We have a national, actually an international presence in the restoration industry. I'll describe that way a little bit. It's all that important. We had a Navy SEAL make a presentation at one of our conferences. And he went through all the things that was so hard about being a Navy SEAL, and we were all wow about all the horrible things that they had to go through in order just to be a Navy SEAL, let alone the battle experience and all these things. He went on and on. His conclusion was he stopped being a Navy SEAL and he retired and he wanted to go into business. You know, this should be a breeze. I'm a Navy SEAL. Jailed miserable. His conclusion, all of us in the room who were all independent business people, he said, nothing I did as a Navy SEAL was as difficult as trying to run a business, which I thought would be. There's a lot more to that story, but essentially that's it. I was very much validated. I was only 10 years. But me, this is about my journey. I needed that validation. I got it from a group of bankers. I ride motorcycles with 4 guys, and 3 of them are either bank board members or CEO of bank. And we were at a diner having breakfast, and somebody walked up and knew those 3 guys and didn't know me. His first knowing them as bankers, he said, "Oh, this is a bankers biker group. And what bank are you with?" And before I could say a word, my good friend who's a CEO of the bank said, "Oh, he's an entrepreneur. Without him, we have nothing." Extremely validating. Extremely validating. 2 more things. I run 2 service companies and I have a real estate portfolio. In my real estate portfolio are some warehouses and many storage facilities and some office buildings, some other stuff that's just kind of mundane. I built this big warehouse building, 80,000 square foot building, and I finished it and I leased it up. And a guy I knew very well, really well, from my church, came to me one day and said, "You know, found out what you paid for the land. I think this is what it cost you to build that building. I think this is what you're getting for rent. I think I know what the debt profile is here." And he was spot on. Spot on. Within a couple $100, I'm talking a multi-million-dollar project. He had it nailed. His final comment was, "But the difference is, you did it and I didn't. You did it. I didn't do it." And that last little bit that he didn't do was take a risk. He said he would have checked out the first meeting with the bank when his attorney and his accountant in the bank had told him what risk he was about to run. That's when he would have been. But he had everything else down, except that last little bit. That last little bit was showing up. Okay, that was very valuable. In my national company, I employ 2 people who run the business on a day-to-day basis for me. Both of them, Yale undergrad, CEO, Kellogg School of Management, experience in big companies around the country. His counterpart, she's our in-house counsel, but far more than that, is a business person. Yale undergrad, Harvard Law, taught at Harvard Law. Big law in LA, got involved in mergers and acquisitions, made some money. These people work for me. This lousy student, they work for me. I'm still blown away with that. But here's what they said to me. One of the most validating things I've ever heard was, "We can operate this business, we can document this business, we can analyze this business, but we can't do what you do." What is it that I do? Whether it be as a CEO or an entrepreneur, what is it that I do? A woodworker has a work product. It could be this podium, that, whatever you call it, I guess a little podium. An accountant's work product is a report. An attorney's work product is, for lack of better anything else to say, an opinion. Okay? A doctor's work product is an effective treatment. My work product as a CEO and entrepreneur are decisions based on information, based on my gut, based on my desires. That's my work product. Well, what does every decision have inherently? Risk. Very, very operative notion in entrepreneurship, risk. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. My objective became, once I chose to get back into the property business and service business, was to develop the service business that generated excess cash flow to provide equity dollars for real estate acquisition and development. That's a sing-songy mouthful, but that's what I did. And overall, I was very successful. When I talk about some of the bumps and bruises that I received along the way, that's basically what I did. One day, one of my apartment customers working in the building, and it had a fire. There was all this damage. And they said, "Can you take care of this?" And I said, "Yes." And I got my truck and said, "What did you just say?" I had no idea. I found out that that very weekend, this was on Thursday, that very weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, there was a clinic put on by a chemical supplier in Philadelphia about fire damage. I not only went to that and consumed the information, but I met some people and I told them the predicament I was in, and we got you. And I did the job. And I met the insurance adjuster, and there's some interesting things about that I don't have time for. Long story short, he gave me more and more and more work. And pretty soon I wasn't doing any RTR work. I was doing all fire and flood work. And this is in an industry that I never even knew existed until 2 years after I was out of college. No idea. I over-evaluated it once I found out of it. But then I realized that I can function very well within it. I love it. And I became a national figure in the industry itself. Due to that passion, due to my willingness to take risks, my national company I bought in 2002. I built my local company, built my real estate, but I bought that. And I bought it with other people's money. Now I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So I've been validated. I've chosen a path. What I thought was going to be aggregating services like landscaping and painting and roofing and turnovers and things like that became, well, a right turn, it's called a correct turn, into a very, very specialized industry and business model that doesn't have something that the other model I was intending to pursue does. It doesn't have recurrent revenue. Things happen when they happen. You deal with it 24/7, 365. And you're committed, or else you don't make it. So I had a paradigm about some level of security with recurrent revenue. Didn't go that direction. Motivated me to put more emphasis on my real estate for recurrent rent, which is quite frankly what I did. I have 100 employees between two companies, two service companies. I think that's significant for me. Small Business Administration considers a small business any business that has less than 500. So I have a small business, big to me, big to some others, way small to others. As I stand here, I'm not retired. I'm not finished being me. But I stand here today. I made more money, and in some cases, a lot more than most people, and I've made far less than others. And that's not necessarily important, except that I had goals relative to this. Some of those relative to others, I don't talk about that. You know? So, entrepreneurship, I appreciate what you had to say. Easy definition is owning business. Okay. But it's still much more than that. But in the context today, I'm not going to wax philosophy for the rest of our time about my theory about entrepreneurship, but I'm going to talk about what I believe entrepreneurship means in the country so well. Who in here has taken economics? Okay. What are the four? I'm going to ask, this is rhetorical. I'm only really going to ask one question that I expect to answer. So, But the four cornerstones of economics of our economy in this country: human resources, not, right? Natural resources, financial resources. What's the fourth? The entrepreneur. Now, how can the first three things be so quantifiable? There's only so many people. There's only so much money. And here we have this emotional condition, a very subjective notion called entrepreneurship, which is the spark that ignites the rest of it through creating efficiencies and synergies between them, finding better ways to create value with any one, if not several, of those other characteristics. I would argue today that technology probably belongs on that list. It would be great if one of you did a paper on that, because technology is so inherent in our world today, even to the extent of currency with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I would argue that technology probably has a place on that list, and maybe even government. But nevertheless, of the four cornerstones of our economy that are studied, I represent one. I'm a significant minority. I still need validation here because it's very much undefined. I need to feel like I'm doing something good, and I measure myself against my own goals. I measure myself against my own values. So I'm going to talk about, for the rest of the time we have together, in the context of a business owner. Okay? I'm a business owner and an entrepreneur both. Business owners aren't always entrepreneurs. You own stock in a public company, you're a business owner. A lot of people are second and third generation business owners that are great operators, but they're not necessarily entrepreneurial in the way they approach their business. So they're not always one and the same. Entrepreneurial type thinking exists across any profession. A professor is an entrepreneur if they push the limits of constraints put upon them and introduce new curriculum, be bold, risk their reputation, maybe risk their job. Same with a pastor, same with the medical profession. Everybody can be an entrepreneur with respect to their thought process. There's risk in all of those things. Okay? So the definition really is about creativity, innovation, synergies, value creation. The profit incentive, very, very important. And not for the reasons that most people on a daily basis think. There's opportunities to be seen. There's vision to capitalize on. There's vision to maintain. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on your objective. Very, very, very important. Entrepreneurs do that. So entrepreneurship is very underrated and undervalued in today's society. We tend to focus on, as a society, extreme successes, sometimes with celebration and sometimes with resentment, criticism, and extreme failures. There's a whole overwhelming majority of folks that are functioning in between those things very effectively: create employment, create value, innovate, improve, create synergies, do all the wonderful things that business people do that really aren't celebrated, in my mind. Again, but I'll be the first to admit, I need my strokes. So, as a business owner, one of the things that I've found unique is that everything I do is completely self-directed. That's how I spend my time. That's how I spend my money. That's how I invest my money. That's not necessarily untrue of anybody else. But there's a lot more gravity when employees depend on you or are dependent upon you. When the decisions you make have ramifications that affect just more than yourself. It's all self-directed. Okay, so there's risk there. A lot of risk there. One of the examples I have of that is I was going on a business trip one time, and my wife was not happy about it at all. And my response to that was, if I worked for General Electric and was told that I have to go on this trip, what would your opinion be? She said, I probably wouldn't be nearly as upset. I'm upset because you made a choice, which appears to me today, between the family at home and that. I wasn't going on a golf trip, but I had to make a decision. Was there enough value in that trip but weren't leaving my family. Every dollar I spent, every dollar I took out of my business, whether in salary or profit distribution, was a dollar I didn't get to invest in my business. Every moment I spent in either one was a moment I didn't get to spend in the other. That was all it was doing. I didn't have hours. People joke that when you're in your own business, you get to work half days. That means choose whichever 12 hours you want. Okay. I have flexibility and freedom. That's not always what's cracked up to be. It's all self-directed. So several phases of business that I have engaged. Again, this is about my journey. And I want to make it clear, any bullet point that I reference here can easily be followed by me saying, ask me how I know. Okay? I'm not describing anything that I haven't lived. Right? So first, I was self-employed. I worked by myself. I had very little investment. I sold my time. When I could, I charged by units of measure for painting or flooring or whatever, like square foot, by the cubic foot, what have you. I had very little risk. And if I failed, you just go get a job. Next step is when I had some capital investment. I had a truck, $30,000 worth of equipment, incurred some debt. By that time, I bought a home, was married, and at that point, my investment needed servicing, needed to generate a return. I needed to make a living more than I did prior to that. And there was more risk. But still, at that point, I was still within the realm of, if I failed, well, I might have to get a job and work a part-time job for a year to pay all this stuff. And that's what that stage represents looking back. The next stage involved employees, structure, and real obligation. I say real obligations, I want to talk about in a second. We're at the point where if I fail, I would be bankrupt. If I fail, I could lose anything that I had accumulated when I was working. And I was beyond that point. I incurred good debt, but big numbers. Good debt. Productive debt, but they're big numbers. And if I would have failed, there's no way I could ever repay. So that's when the rubber really met me. When I was operating an organization, and I had people that depended on me that were more than my wife and happy now. The next step is where I am currently. There's a lot of capital investment, having bought a company that I bought for a lot of money, none of which was mine. And I prefer to talk about that in a smaller forum and not until I'm wearing the wire. But with that, I have a structure. I have a board. I'm accountable to a board. I love it. I get support. I get feedback. I get validation. I get criticism. Prior to that, I had to come up with all that myself. And constantly, whether I'm second guessing or reevaluating or searching for an answer that I probably wasn't going to find, I have a board that helps me. But I had to get to this level to do that. And I like where we are. One of the things you want to be careful of, any of you that want to be in your own business, and this is my opinion, there's nothing that's right or wrong. Okay, and I have a saying. Be careful you don't buy yourself a job. It's easy to go out today and buy a franchise. Franchisor will finance it for you and give you tools and support you to some extent. But in a lot of cases, unless you're extraordinary, you did is you bought yourself a job. There's a difference between making money and making a living. Big difference. Know the difference. It's easy to make busy. It's hard to make money. And then again, very important. It's easy to make busy. It's hard to make money. Handling money is at making money. Between my two service companies, there was a time between 2012 and 2016 where I was handling $100 million a year. And I promised myself I wasn't going to spout out numbers. This is what I'm going to do. We were handling $100 million a year. 2016, we sold the division. It comprised 50 of that. But in 2017, handling only 50, we made twice the amount of money we did when we were handling 100. The guy told me one time, if you run enough corn through the wheel, some of it's bound to fall off into your hand. That's not a business plan. And my illustration proves that. Right? Know the difference between wealth and income. Wealth is wealth. Income is what you live on. Income is what you spend. Hopefully some of you save and invest. Hopefully you save and invest in the things that represent true wealth. In my case, it was real estate. That's where my wealth is. It provides consistent passive income that I don't have to have my hands on anything. The real. And that was a goal that I achieved. I'm proud of it. Is it more than some people? Yep. Is it less than others? Oh, yeah. I'm working with a kid, a 30-year-old kid right now, who has purchased $1 billion worth of estate. The beat. Right? Or less than it. Again, ask me how I know. So, some really important things. I'll tell you why and how I do this the way I do it with my chicken scratch paper. When you own a business, let's just take me at the last plateau, having employees, having structure. There's a lot that's expected by the law, by your employees, by society. There truly are great expectations. And this isn't a complaint. I like to use the term there's what's right and there's what's legal. Okay? These are realities that you have to manage if you want to be in business to any degree. Taxes. Here's the question I want to answer. Who is the tax collector in the United States of America? Somebody. Government. That's the answer I typically get. Anybody else? The American employer is the tax collector in our country. We generate the business, we collect the money, we pay our employees, we extract those tax dollars, we administrate it, and we send it in accurately and on time. And as a small business owner, if you don't send it in on time, they show up at your door, armed. Ask me how I know. That's a huge responsibility placed upon you. It's taken for granted. I take it for granted now because it becomes part of the process. But when you think about it, that's a huge responsibility. And when they show up at your door armed, they make it very clear how huge a responsibility it is. I also want to refrain from opinions, but I'm going to give opinions on two things, that and health insurance. If you have over 50 employees, you must provide health insurance. And do we ever provide full paid, full family health benefits to all of our employees, including co-pays and out-of-pocket benefits? Why do we do that? A lot of good reasons. Some of them are very holistic, and some of it's just competitive. We're competing for people. That's the resource we're competing with. And that's what it takes for us to get mature people who put face of value. Young people don't put as much time. Mature people raising families certainly. And my opinions on that is, I really believe that if every employee, every payday, had to sit down at least at a terminal and find their way through a spreadsheet that allocates their tax money and their Social Security money and their state tax money and their local tax money, I think people would probably vote more. I think they'd probably be a little bit more concerned about where their tax dollars go, where the country's heading, whatever. I think there'd be a lot more participation. And same with health insurance. I think that if the average employee receives, and I don't want to insult anybody, but this is my experience. If it weren't out of sight, out of mind, I think healthcare would be a lot cheaper and a lot better if everybody who utilized it took a greater part of it in the process. So there's my opinion. I don't think they're political. I think they're just my view of concept. Folks are looking for guarantees. The government's looking for you to guarantee the fact that you're going to put the tax money in on the right day, or when they show up on. Your employees are laborers. They want a guaranteed 40 hours. And by the way, like, is there guaranteed over? They need that security. It's not a criticism. They need that. It's an expectation. I come from a small community. I come from Elizabeth County, Educate for Service. I come from the Church of the Brothers. The mind shop means community. So our giving, our community expects, and as business people, as successful business people, we're going to give back. Building team, donate to a capital campaign, and come to business people first. Well, that's not right or wrong. It's just a reality. Excuse me, politics. I never went to a fundraiser that wasn't overwhelmingly populated by business people for either party. There's an expectation of business people to participate at a different level than the average American. So all these things we're expected to provide consistently, continuously and consistently, and that's where the stress for me. That's part of my job. That's where my stress is. Let's talk about goals. First, decide whether you're goal-oriented or task-oriented. I'm goal-oriented. I foul up tasks. That's why I used to have an assistant at Flight. I guess I could. She would still do it. The babysat me for 35 years plus. She would have put together a PowerPoint. I would have made it from slide 2 on space. So I just sent it this way. That's me. I'm okay with that. Decide which one you are. If you're task-oriented, you need to surround yourself with some people who are goal-oriented. If you're goal-oriented, surround yourself with some people who are task-oriented. There's a lot of tasks in the pathway to a goal. If you don't have a goal or a target, you'll never hit it. You have to have one. Whatever it be, no right or wrong answer. But if you don't have one, you won't hit it. Nothing is right or wrong unless it's tied to an objective or linked to an objective. So my objective coming here this morning was to get here by 10 o'clock to meet Marty. So I got on the turnpike and came the fastest way and came up 222 and 283, and I was here on time. My next time constraint is 6:15 a.m. tomorrow when I catch a flight back to Florida. I hate this one, so hang out there. This time. When I go home, you probably won't go that way. You might go up through Mount Gretna or go through Reading, something, and my wife's going to say, "What took you so long?" I'm going to say, "Oh, I went," and she's going to say, "Well, that wasn't the fastest way." I'll say, "Well, that's only wrong. If my objective was to go the fastest way. My objective was to enjoy the ride. So therefore, I'm not wrong." That's a really rudimentary example, but I hope it means something. My goals in general for my personal life were to earn a great living for my family, which I did. We did some cool stuff. We had some cool stuff. It wasn't about the having. I enjoyed the doing actually more than the having. I wanted to create wealth and passive income. I wanted to push my limits. And I did. I beat myself up for years. I didn't go through basic training in the military. I never thought I was pushed to the really hard. Well, I'll tell you what. In 2014, when I ran into some serious trouble, I found my limits. Very good, I did. I don't wish that upon anybody, but I wish it upon everybody. I wish it upon everybody to really, really push yourself and find your limits and be okay. It took me until I was 50 to really feel comfortable with that, to feel that I lost that line. You always need a plan. You always need a plan B. There's a battle saying, no battle plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. It always has to change. Have a plan B, or prepare to come up with it. Be prepared to adapt and do it quick. You have a plan A and plan B. There's a series of books called Make Your Bed series. None of you heard of it. Admiral McCrae. You know Admiral McCrae? Little 3-book series. These are, I call them one flight lead. One big book is one flight lead. Anybody who wants one, with a budget for helps you, just buy 10 little packets and give them a 10. Okay, don't let me forget. Thank you. What I'm reading right now, and it really hits home a lot of things that are important. So, as I said, the best laid plans don't always survive the first encounter, whether it be a customer, a sales call, a battle, a project, whatever. You're always going to have to do that. Now, the goals you set for yourself are your goals. My goals are my goals. There's no right or wrong, but they understand your goals. It's nice to share them with your spouse and your family. Nice to share them with your employees. Great to share with anybody. If they buy in, it's even better. If you're your goals. I don't like to compare, but in the same breath, I like to compare. I took a yoga course one time as a kid. It's just not me, but one of the things that I uttered was comparison is the thief of joy, creativity, and individual. That means if you do it too much. One of my favorite replies as of late, particularly with my employees, when they make a statement, and I'll go back to 1996 when we had our first computer in the office. Nobody had one. Few people had them in their business. When I was here in E-Town, one guy in West Terry, in Oakland, had a computer in his room. That was a big deal. The line outside the doors. We got our first computers, and somebody would say, "This is slow." I'd say, "Compared to what?" I mean, everything has a relative function. And before we run out of time, I'm going to skip ahead to some of the things I think are really important there. So compare, but don't. When I compare myself, yeah, why know what the average retirement package is for someone my age? I do. Did I exceed that? Hell yeah. Okay, it's important to me. Should it be? It is to me. Income, the same thing. So I do compare. I do index. I have this advice, and remember, everything can be followed up by ask me how. Stay out of court. It's kind of fun to say, "Oh, we win that in a court of law. We're so right. We have a contract." And all these things. Nobody wins, really. You don't. Plus, being right is overrated. It costs money. You don't get it back. Work it out. Manage by agreement. Manage with accountability. Don't manage by assumption. You manage by assumption, you end up in, when you manage by agreement, you can refer back and forth between parties. I have some war stories about such things that are actually kind of fun to talk about, but I don't have time for it. Don't define yourself by your successes or your failures. If you define yourself by your successes, you're in danger of becoming entitled, complacent, lazy, and fat. Okay? I say that, it's just in excess, okay? And you're defined by that, okay? As opposed to who you really are. And who I really am, what's important to me, is my integrity, my standards, my goals, my commitments. I define myself by that. So no matter what happens, succeed or fail, I still have that. Nobody can take that from me. Everything else that's around me, somebody can take from me. Those things they can't. And they try. Okay? Ask me how I know. Show up. The example I gave you about my warehouse that I built. I showed up. You've all been told at one time, or that's half the battle. Well, a good portion of the rest of the battle is staying. Okay? A lot of the difference between those who make it and those who don't, or those who stick with it. Very, very important. Do it. Show up. Do it. Stick it out. If you're anywhere close to being on the mark with your objective, and you do those things, you have a real good chance of being successful, in my opinion. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's enough software, there's enough technology, there's enough people, there's enough pre-published employee manuals, there's everything. You don't need to reinvent any of those things. Use your time inventing the things that make your product or service or business unique. Spend your time on that. Don't reinvent what you don't have to. Consider very seriously advice you get from qualified sources. Qualified is the opposite word there, but take good advice from good people. People have asked me or said, "You're a tough businessman." What is tough? Is that tough? I think what described me as tough was that I'm not easily willing to compromise my integrity, my perception of the value I create in my business for a customer, among other things. And so, yeah, I think my heels in pretty hard, and that's what someone's asking me to do. So in that sense, yeah, I'm confident in the value we provide to customers. If I say I'm going to do something for $100, and I know in my heart it's worth $100, value's there, and somebody says, this guy will do it for 80. I'm confident enough to say, maybe you should use it. And I get a couple things. Really? You would say that? Yep. You'd walk away right now. Yep. Well, maybe we should talk a little further. Maybe we shouldn't. I only appreciate the tone. I don't have to have that tone. I'm confident in the value. And it's proven that we provide it. Hence our tenure in business, our growth, the tenure of our employees, the awards we've gotten, all kinds of things. Speak of it. So, yeah, I'm confident. Look beyond the obvious. What's the essence of the business? Mustang used to say, what's the business of the business? I went to a seminar one time where McDonald's executives were the key speakers. You know what business McDonald's says they're in? I don't understand. I'll learn more about it. They say they're in the real estate business. I'm in the fire and water damage restoration. So we clean up oil spills on kinds of other estimates. Large part of Jen. What business are we in? Well, we're in the business. We get paid by virtue of the number of square feet we paint, estimated labor, what it takes to hang this board, per square foot of those 1 square foot tiles. That's how we get paid. Really, everybody can do that. Anybody can do that except us. That's not what we're in the business of doing. Our customers hurt. Our customer lost hope. Our customer fears that they're going to be out of pocket in the amount of money they can't afford. Our customer fears that they won't be in by Christmas. Our customer fears that they're going to be homeless. Our customer fears all those kind of things. We're in the business of providing hope to mitigate that fear. And how do we do that? We do that with our attitude. We do that with our professionalism. We do that with our documentation. We do that with doing what we promised we said we would do. Therefore, we're purveyors of that hope. My competition, who does just as good a job as putting that title down, who doesn't document well, doesn't communicate well, doesn't do what they say they're going to do, does not do that, and therefore their customer is not satisfied. That's what my customer needs. Now, would I do it again? Absolutely. Do I regret? No. Would I like to press the reset button on a few things and get a do-over? Absolutely. Particularly knowing what I know now. That's the case of all of us. My greatest success is born of my biggest failure, which is big. But what I'm most proud of is how we overcame it. We came out the other side better off than we were before it even happened. Biggest success was the product of failures. Story I love to tell. I was embarrassed to tell it for a long time. No more. You tell the truth, you always be prepared. Know that. If you tell the truth, you're always prepared. It's really easy. Sometimes the truth isn't pleasant. Sometimes it's a bitter pill. You or the person you're telling. But if you do it, you're always prepared. Make sure you have a mirror. Make sure you have a mirror that works, it's clean, and that you use often. Keep it in good working order. Because you're accountable to yourself. Look in that mirror. Take it very seriously. The commitments you made to yourself, your family, your customers, your employees, the community, the government, and everybody else who rolls around in your world. Ultimately, it's on you. Those decisions are yours. Final thing. Something about money.
I know that we have some students who do have class right after this. If you do have class, you're more than welcome to go. I don't want you to be late for your class, but if not, you're more than welcome to stay and listen more. In fact, our speaker is willing to stay and have a review if you want to talk more and hear more of the very impressive and to get big stories of our speakers. So I just want to make sure that if you do have a class, make sure you go to your class. You don't have to be late for that. That's how it
I'll say no kind of what would I do? What would I been? And what did I do?
Okay, why don't we take this moment to take a
Don't feel bad. I get it. Let's talk about money. I'll make this short. Those of you who would say after I come to lunch, I have a little exercise, a little quiz about this that I like to give, and I've done it here before this school. Once in a while, I get a good answer. So we talk about money. My opinion, my experience is that when you talk money, you talk about the amount of money, the relativity of money, the timing of money, and the terms of it. I'm not getting put in the books. I say it again, I think I should. Money involves an amount, relativity, timing, and terms. To hear any more about it, you're going to have to come to me. I'll give you that little quiz, but I like to do it for 2 or 3 people. I did skip around a little bit, because I had to. Let me tell you why I didn't make a PowerPoint or had one made. It's not me. I'm passionate. I believe in what I'm doing. What I describe to you is the truth. I'm prepared. I didn't do a lot of research. I looked up entrepreneurship and people are disappointed. The definition, just to refresh myself. I had a marketing class here in a summer session one time. Taught by a gentleman who was executive vice president of marketing for New Holland Farm. And we had to make a presentation. And our fellow students, we all voted whose was the best. And I made a presentation. That time, we didn't have time. We had slides on overhead projector, transparency. Did you see one of that? Wouldn't be surprised if you had. We had those. Okay. And we're supposed to have note cards. And about the third note card, I was like, I brought Anthony over. And I made my presentation. And I had a drawing of what I was promoting, why, and all of its attributes, and really a sales presentation. But my presentation was voted the best in the group. And I thought that was cool. So I got a C. So, Mr. Beer, cutting beer, fine gentlemen, why voted the best presentation, did I get a C? He said, well, my objective was that you would be able to compose a presentation that you could make repetitively over and over and over again. And besides that, give to a subordinate or a coworker so they could go and make the same consistent presentation. So, well, okay, that would make me a good employee. Okay, that would make me function well in a department like yours in a Fortune 500 company. That's not me. And by the way, you didn't make that clear in the syllabus or in the assignment. So I negotiated my CEO for B. But I learned a lot about myself in the way I do this. I speak to people all year long, sometimes groups of 1,000, sometimes groups of 4, sometimes it's my employees, sometimes employees via teams around the globe. I'm honest, therefore I'm prepared. I have passion for what we do. Therefore, it's incumbent upon me to express it and impart it upon my audience. It's incumbent upon me to meet my audience's expectations. I hope whatever expectation you walk in here with, I hope I met it. I'm probably a little bit different than, you rarely ever get a tie on me. Maybe a wedding, probably a funeral. Other than that, probably not. Not who I am. But what I know about who I am is I'm content, I'm happy, I've met my goals and objectives to date. I'm proud of it, despite the bumps along the way. Don't ever forget that I said 3 times, my biggest success was born from my biggest failure. I'm telling you what, I was so broke in 2014, I couldn't afford to pay attention. I never missed a bank payment during that time. Every tuition bill was paid. I met all my obligations. No one missed a paycheck. But man, was it close. Was it ever tight? And in another format, I'll tell you how we got there, and I'll tell you how we got out of it. Very proud of the way, and I say we, My team stuck with me, my family stuck with me, and we got it done. Okay? So failure, in my mind, is not failure. I wish failure upon all of you. The same breath, I wish it upon none of you, depending on who you are, what you value. Failure teaches you. Don't look back. Look back and learn. Don't look back and dwell. Rivers flow forward. Be a river. Flow forward. Drive on. Learn and drive on. You'll be better off for it. Most of what you have to do here as students is self-directed. You have to get up in the morning and go to class. You have to put the effort into it. Nobody's pointing a gun to your head about on that. I'm sorry. You have people around you supporting you, fellow classmates, your professors. You have a support system. You too. I couldn't function without it. Whether it be my family, whether it be my business peers, whether it be my employees. Now, I have an old employee. He's retired. He's late 70s by now. He had a tough time in his business, really tough. And he gave it up. Came to work for me. Was always my biggest fan, always a confidant, and was very willing to counsel, especially younger people, and some of the realities that go on in our company. And I was in my office, and down below me was a shop area where we did some in-house stuff. And I heard this ruckus. And what the heck is that? You were yelling. And I went down there, and he was holding the court. And the week before that, I had purchased a convertible from a really nice, and really cool. And she was seen driving, which is fun. But there was some consternation about that among some folks. And the guy said, they just really have trouble with the fact that he can afford that. And this is when my mentor piped up and said, you should be concerned if he couldn't afford that. Then he went on to say, there's 40 employees here. That means, and you're employed every day plus overtime. There's 40 days of work that are available to be done every day here. Wow, what a responsibility. Now that I think about it like that, I'm more stressed. Yeah, I have to make sure 40 days worth of work are available every day. I had support in that. I had support from my team in doing that. I felt validated by it. I was motivated to do it better, to keep on doing it. There are days, look, I don't have letters. I said that. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this. What would I do if I didn't do this? Could I go get a job? I don't have letters. What could I do? Well, I have a commercial truck driving business. I probably sell cars, but I'm not comfortable trying to sell a Cadillac to somebody who really needs shed. What could I do? Yeah, there's. Okay. But then there were those days. But there's far more days of being satisfied, challenged, and intrigued than there were those days. So you got to go through this. Healthy, but don't dwell in it. Move on. Get help. Ask for advice. Take the advice. So if we're still here, I can go over a couple more things. What I would like to do differently, might sound a little bit counterintuitive. I should have borrowed more money along the way. I should have. I also should have engaged a variety of funding and financing mechanisms. Greater variety. So when I bought my national company, I used other people's money. And believe me, it's a big number. None of my own. I was extremely validated. The private equity group said, here's the deal. You do what you can do that we believe you can do. And we put up the money and we're partners. And by the way, when you succeed to this level, you're a greater partner and we're a lesser partner, and you succeed to a greater level, now we're less and you're more. And I own 68% of that company when I started out with my 41% as for the money data. Okay? I wish I would have known about those mechanisms 20 years ago. Maybe I would have gone going those things. I didn't. Okay, fine. I think I would have liked to have known more about the expectations I talked about, taxes, health insurance, and guarantees. And I think my worst years, I had a lot of stressful years, but some of the ones I disliked the most was before we had a personnel program, a line of defense before me for employee matters, HR things. The worst part of the day, it was 4 o'clock. I'd get my desk, door was open door policy, and someone would stick their head around my door and see only this much. Least favorite words. Un-American. I cared for everybody. I wanted their needs met. But to me, it was like getting hit in the head with a bat. When I was working on something that was larger than, I want to minimize their issue. But my life got far easier and our business became far more effective, successful. When we had a manual, when we had personnel policy, we had someone other than me to administrate it. And the same is true of many things. That goes for accounting, that goes for operations management, that goes for people that are far better at the trade that we're involved in than I'll ever be. I can do it. I'll go as far as to say, standing in the day. I hate them. People around me that are far better at it. It's okay. They're good with it. So am I. I do what I do, which is the first. They do what they do, which is just a thing. So I have those do-overs, but I don't have regrets. I've learned a lot from the struggles. I've learned a lot from some of the failures. Lots. Probably more than the success. We're on the right side of the line, far further ahead than I thought we'd ever be. As a company, as a family, I never dreamt. I never dreamt I'd be standing here and saying that I was here 41 years ago. I couldn't imagine living before, even living for 41, let alone 41 years later. So don't box yourself in. Don't limit yourself. Keep your mind open. It's a bright future ahead. It's long. It's a long road. Back in the day, you referred to entrepreneurs as rugged individualists. Today, somehow that's like fallen out of favor as somehow politically correct. I don't know why. But you have to be a rugged individual because the decisions are yours, you're accountable, and the road is rough. Yeah. I can go on like this till this time next week, so I think our time is up. We need that much. And I really appreciate it.